Hello, Simone. Now, many of you watching might be aware of the current phenomenon going on in the United States. It makes it nearly impossible for Democrats to win elections after the 2030s. This is due to something called redistricting, in which as voters move to red states, blue states lose votes because the number of votes you get in a presidential election and in Congress is based on your population. Well, turns out nobody wants to live in blue states anymore. For a long time. And these states are lower fertility anyway.
Well, this also reminds me of that stat that showed that minority populations, like non-white populations that live in red districts versus blue districts, have higher income, like all these measures that were way better. Like,
well, in contrast with white populations, actually everyone typically has lower income in red states. Just for clarification. But that's because the urban monoculture prefers to grow in environments where it can harvest more money. So it focuses on wealthy cities and stuff like that. But you're right about that. They're like relatively less racist in the implications of their policy than blue states.
And well, we're as consequentialists, we care about outcomes. You know, if they're thriving more in red districts, I would say red districts create better outcomes for minorities.
Right. But so in this episode, you've probably heard of this or you're broadly aware of it, but I want to both go into the specifics of this and go into scenarios about what it means to actually win an election. Like, what are you actually going to win? How does it change which states are swing states? And how does it change what Democrats need to do to win elections going forwards?
Okay.
While also arguing that this is just going to be incredibly hard for them to pull off, and they'll likely need some new form of a coalition to win elections going forwards. And I don't know what that coalition is going to look like, but what's interesting about the way the Democrats have built their coalition is it's entirely exclusionary recently. It's either you support trans people or you're totally out. Either, like as we said, like all you need to do is disagree on one thing and you're not a Dem at all anymore. Like J.K. Rowling is a Dem in every single way, but like trans issues. And she's like a demon, right? Like Elon was like every single way, but like trans issues, demon. And now he's like on the right, you know, like, so even if you like just disagree on like the dumb thing, you point out the giant mole on their face, you know, it ends up causing you to be exercised from their culture. So
yeah, I mean, just wait, you make the tiniest wrong move and you're out. That's the really scary thing.
It's very hard. Basically, they need to find a new group to protect. It's sort of the way their culture is structured. But who would that be? It could only be religious conservatives, but you know, say, oh well, we'll protect your children, but then that would upset the trans people and the, you know, so I don't know what they're going to do. We'll muse on that at the end of this, but let's just go into the stats here to start. Okay. Based on population projections for the 2030 census, certain states are expected to gain House seats due to population groups, primarily in the South and West. Since each state's electoral votes equals its number of House seats plus 2 for its senators, an increase in House seats directly increases electoral votes. The states gaining electoral votes, along with the number of votes, are Texas plus 4, Florida plus 4, Arizona plus 1, Utah plus 1, North Carolina plus 1, Utah plus 1. Total electoral votes gained 12. Conversely, states with population decline or slower growth, particularly in the Northeast and Midwest, as well as California, are projected to lose House seats. Thus, electoral voters, the states that are going to lose them are California minus 4, New York minus 2, Illinois minus 1, Minnesota minus 1, Oregon minus 1, Pennsylvania minus 1, Rhode Island minus 1, Wisconsin minus 1. More critically, projections suggest that by 2030, Democrats rely on their safely Democratic states, e.g. California and New York, plus the blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and Nebraska's second district, 1 vote, they would secure only 258 votes, falling 12 votes short of the 270 they need to win a presidency. So if Democrats just win what they historically considered like the safe path to victory, they will not win under the new system. So I want to, you know, just put that out there again. So even if Democrats win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and Nebraska, so half of Nebraska, they still wouldn't win the cycle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's not great. Okay, To reach 270 electoral votes on the 2030 map, Democrats must win additional swing states beyond the blue wall, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, to make up the 12-vote deficit. The electoral vote counts for swing states under the 2030 projections are Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, or Nevada. So if they win any of these, they would win if they won those, like Pennsylvania and whatever. But I actually think winning Pennsylvania is going to be increasingly hard. And we're going to go into that in just a second. But like if Pennsylvania gets harder to win, we're going to go over just how hard it gets for them to win elections. Possible collections of additional swing states to reach or exceed 12 electoral votes include Arizona alone, Georgia alone, North Carolina alone, Arizona plus Nevada. This is assuming Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Now let's see what happens if they lose PA. That's where we live, is Pennsylvania. And I know that there's been some major changes in Pennsylvania in the last election cycle. Specifically, Scott Pressler, gay hero, ended up radicalizing the Amish, who historically didn't vote. The Amish basically said, well, we won't vote, we won't get involved in politics, and we won't become politicized because we don't want the system to attack us when, the wrong party's in power. And what the Amish realized, and Scott Pressler convinced him of this, is actually the system's attacking you right now and will continue to attack you because it needs your kids to survive. The progressives aren't having kids, and they get kids from you. So you should join up with this Trump guy. He'll protect your rights. And they're like, you know what? That sounds about right. And they were seeing this. What was funny is one thing the Amish really hated was handouts for having lots of kids. They often complained about getting this from the government. They're like, I'm not going to turn it down, but like they've made money worthless. So assuming they lose PA, okay? Assuming Democrats secure their safely Democratic states, 213 votes, and the blue walls, this is assuming they win Michigan and Wisconsin, then they must need an additional 32 votes from swing states. Here's the most realistic combinations they could get over time. So they'd have to, if they lose PA, get Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, and North Carolina. Now, that seems incredibly unlikely. Yes, Georgia flipped Democratic in 2020, and North Carolina did, while narrowly Republican in recent cycles. But the problem is that the current trends would cause them to flip in the opposite direction more. Like Dems winning Georgia and North Carolina, especially given how hard they've lost the Hispanic vote, is going to be really, really difficult. Okay. So they could win Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada. I could see Arizona and Nevada, but I do not see them winning Georgia if they haven't won Pennsylvania. That doesn't make sense. Okay. So then what else? Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, and New Hampshire. Again, I don't see them winning Georgia if they don't win Pennsylvania. Okay, then what else? North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, and Wisconsin could win them the election. That is more realistic, but that still requires North Carolina. So basically, it means that going forwards, Dems have to win Pennsylvania or create a new fulcrum state, which would be Georgia. Now, here's how they might win Georgia. And I could see this. So let's talk about this. Maybe what they need to focus on is this idea that the Republican Party really has, and I will admit this, as we've argued in the past, the Republican Party used to be the party of the Cavaliers. This is deep South culture. This is a highly aristocratic and hierarchical culture, and a culture that believes in strict social norms that need to be followed to sort of earn or portray your status. And Trump doesn't follow that at all. He regularly flaunts such norms in a way that causes leaders within Southern culture to be quite upset with him and disgusted by him. And, then he brought J.D. Vance in, who represents an extent a continuation of this. Now, he doesn't have the vulgarity of Trump totally, but he's vulgar in other ways that show like a thumbing his nose at these cultural mores. Like he really likes Magic the Gathering. That is not something that one of these, Magic the Gathering is a card game for nerds, that these cultures would have loved. That was like the My Little Pony of his generation or something, right? I like Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering, I was so obsessed with it. I was always excited when new card packs would come out. Oh my God. You know what? New life goal, play Magic the Gathering against JD Vance, or have our kids play against his kids.
Oh my gosh, how great would that be? They need to grow a little bit more though. They need to get a little older.
Yeah, and we need to get a little more feminist.
Yeah, I guess, step one, somehow befriend JD Vance. Step two, kids grow up.
Yeah, but as the conservatives have embraced the real nerds, it's the Dems went through and trashed nerd culture and made it all woke. This is something that a lot of deep Southern culture had some antipathy towards.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reason the alliance works now is we're like, well, look, you are conservative. You do not have the numbers to impose your value system on the general population right now. But if you join our coalition, we can at least work to protect your kids from deconversion. And that means, more school choice. That means, more efficient government services, like preventing stuff like the USAID that was going out and running all these conversion camps basically all around the world, wasting our money. And they're like, okay, yeah, we can broadly agree on all of that. Like that's an area where we can all agree. But if the left reclassified conservative Christians as a minority religious tradition within their value system, and it's just like, okay, in the same way we treat Muslims, like they don't mind that like Muslims throw gay people off buildings, right? Like if there was in their cultural context, can they create sort of the same like gays for evangelicals, gays for born again Christians? I don't think so. Like it's a long shot, but it is a shot. Let's go to some alternative scenarios if they lose. Okay, so I was like, if Democrats win Michigan or Wisconsin, fail to win Michigan or Wisconsin, their path becomes even harder. Without Wisconsin starting 213, they would need a combination of something like Georgia, North Carolina, and Nevada to win, or they need to flip either Texas or Florida. But Florida has become increasingly hard to flip in recent election cycles, so much that on most maps it's listed as solidly red, in a large part due to the MAGA coalition's ability to win the Hispanic vote. Thoughts before I go further?
On the All In podcast recently, Antonio Gracias, who's doing work with Doge, was talking about issues with illegal immigrants. And he mentioned that it was found that a bunch of people who were in the United States as illegal immigrants did actually end up voting. And I keep thinking about that when I think about this, that the Democratic Party, I don't think that there was
thousands of illegal immigrants, by the way.
I don't know how, like what the count was, but it was in multiple states. I don't think they have a final count yet because they're only just starting to dig into these numbers. I mean, Doge did tweet at one point about some other things that these people have done. They said that they were 905 collecting Medicaid, 41 collecting unemployment insurance, 22 received federal student loans, 409 received tax refunds, and then several received food stamp benefits, which is not something that illegal aliens should be receiving, but they're doing it anyway. And yes, they are also voting in some cases. I don't think that the Democratic Party was like, oh, this is a plan of mine to do this. I think that they were just like, well, I mean, we want to empower these, people who've fled from terrible situations, and it doesn't hurt that they would vote for us. And they would vote for them because it was Democratic policies that also allowed them to do things like, technically they weren't supposed to, but here are your SNAP benefits, here's your unemployment insurance, things like that.
Yeah, and legal immigrants don't want to pay for this, and they feel bad for their existing family who's waiting to get in the right way, right?
Yeah. So I just keep thinking back to that conversation and Antonio Gracias' initial findings, because also it blew my mind that illegal immigrants would vote. And I was just like, well, that would never happen. And it has happened. So that is pretty crazy. And I do, I mean, like, because I'm thinking on both ends, because a big thing that was coming up at the close of this last presidential election was, oh, well, if the Democrats win, Republicans will never be able to win again. So it's interesting for me to hear you saying now, Democrats are completely screwed. This is not the narrative that I was hearing, because based on immigration trends, whether or not, they were legal migrants.
Well, this is when Democrats thought that they had the Hispanic vote in their pocket. And the problem is that once people become Hispanic legal citizens, these are trad cats. They are not like the black. This is the black population. Even if they would be benefited by voting for conservatives, even if they would be, like the Conservative Party aligns with their actual social values, which it does, they've been sort of of brainwashed into believing that conservatives are racist or anti-black or something like that. And we've seen this even around like pronatalist conferences. Like when CNN was covering it, it's like, it's suspicious that there weren't a lot of black people there. That must mean everyone there is a racist. And I'm like, no, it's just there weren't a lot of black people there. Like, why would there? Like, we're not like proselytizing within like black community centers or something. We're not comping their tickets like Democrats would. Like, we just treat everyone equally. Like, of course, there's just not a lot of black people here, whatever. And so I think that but they're trying to create the perception, and the black communities have believed this perception largely. A lot of based ones haven't, and they're like, yeah, I see what's up. Like, you're using us, right? Like, you don't actually, as Simone pointed out, you don't actually help our communities. Our communities are differentially worse off when we're in Democrat controlled territories. We do better in Republican areas. So clearly, like, you guys are just using us. But that hasn't happened in Hispanic communities. Dems thought they could replay this hand within Hispanic communities. And in the last election cycle, the majority of Hispanic men, for example, voted for Trump. And the Hispanic vote overall was only slightly for Biden, and it's moved by Kamala, and it's moving pretty fast. And I think this is because of how information networks work within Hispanic communities. They're much more based around family networks and much less based around external sources of information. So even if you can gaslight like around an entire culture, like everyone believes this, they just like go to their like, cousin, and they're like, hey, do we believe this? And the cousin's like, no, I don't think we do. And they're like, okay, well, and family networks makes you significantly more likely to get pissed off at inefficient government bureaucracies than smaller networks. Because whenever the inefficient bureaucracy accidentally closes somebody's store by over applying things, or applies COVID restrictions too harshly, or does something that screws over a small business within Hispanic communities, they're like, oh, my second cousin lost everything that his whole family had worked for their entire lives because of your arbitrarily applied bureaucratic norms. I hate the deep state, right? Like, these are anti my community. But if you don't have the strong family networks, which the Dems have done a very good job of breaking up within many black communities, you're not going to get that information. And it's just, well, if the state, I can live off the state, I can live off the state, right? And if I've been told Republicans are racist, well, they must be racist because everyone affirms this, or everyone who's, immediately. So I think that's part of it.
But there's also not a world in which we don't continue with the two-party system. I think like things just naturally sort to that, given the way that our political governmental system is set up. So what I imagine will happen is the Democrat Party will move to a much more appealing position, possibly even appealing to us. Who knows? Like they could go in a great direction. So,
well, I don't think they could. I think so. If you look at Democrats right now to win, you're saying they could appeal to the tech right, like the new right.
No, or just centrist Americans. I don't know. I really don't know what direction they could possibly take.
I know they need basically what they.
I mean, the would-be leaders now are what, like Gavin Newsom. I don't know what they're gonna do.
They want to further, like, their plan is, we're going to further increase the turnout of our existing coalition. And that is actually pretty good of a strategy when both coalitions are equal. But we're going to move into an era where they need a new component to the coalition for the coalition to work. And it could be the tech right, but that just seems incredibly unlikely because the tech right is basically what the Republican Party is right now if you look at the actual policy that they're pushing. If, however, they lost the tech right, that'd be really bad for the Republicans. Like, I think that Trump and JD understand this very well. I think most Republicans at like Heritage or at other like competently run like legacy Republican, they really like talking to people like us and understanding people like us because they're like, okay, this is like the new part. You're just talking to a reporter and he's like, well, I mean, you guys aren't fully Republican, right? Like, I was like, no, like we are 100% new right. Like there isn't a single issue in terms of what the Trump administration has done where I'm like, I categorically disagree with this. And in some cases, I'm like, that's an interesting hypothesis that you think that would work. And I'm, at least glad that you're trying radical things, but it probably won't. But that's not like an actual like difference of opinion, right? I mean, so that's what makes it so hard to get the tech right. As I think that the left has the perception that the tech right kind of agrees with the left and kind of agrees with the right. And it's just with the right now for because of their cultural imperialism. And it's like, no, we're like 100% on this side. The right would need to do something to seriously betray us. Like, put restrictions on IVF, but Trump has made IVF easier and cheaper to get, so
maybe, I don't know. I mean, a lot of the press coverage of tariffs implies that, like, if, for example, the Trump administration gets tagged with a recession, like it's their fault, they did this with tariffs, I could see there being a big backlash that could cause a rebalancing. It leaves an opening for Democrats to even just kind of gaslight the US populace to be like, we were always the reasonable party. We never
too much. The problem with that is that's the rich people coalition, and Democrats already have the rich people coalition. That's already part of their winning circle, So if they go out and they're like, we're extra good for rich people are going to be like, not a good look. Like, you should at least try to sell to Republicans.
Yeah. I wonder.
I mean, look, everybody knows, like, I've always said trans people, you can't, like, they're like, oh, we can't abandon our trans allies. And it's like, look, if you are siding with people who literally dress up like they're from the Capitol and the Hunger Games, like, you can't be the party of the working people.
I love the Capitol and the Hunger Games.
That is like the way, like, apparently like 50% of trans people dress. I'm like, why? You do not look like the disenfranchised.
You
look
don't
like
need to ask why.
Because their privilege.
It's obvious.
But to keep going, electoral college and House seat reappointment. Population growth in Republican-leaning states like Texas and Florida means these states will gain House seats, blah, blah, blah. Now, what's really interesting about this is that a lot of this is actually coming downstream of people moving where they live because Democrats are doing such a bad job of managing Democratic.
Yeah, they're just fleeing Democratic policies in terms of housing, in terms of homeless communities and all that, right? They just can't live with it anymore.
And obviously the Democrat dream is, we move enough people to, let's say, Austin, that we turn Texas blue. And that's been the Democratic dream for a long time. But I don't think it's realistic given where the Hispanic vote is going. Like, I think they had sort of gasped the Hispanic community for a while, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question for you. Who would you say Republicans should go after next? If Republicans were going to chip off part of the Democratic coalition, who would it be?
They need more gay men. I think that more gay men would be good.
I agree. I think it's a very winnable faction.
Like, the movement has already started. Just build momentum and go all the way.
Yeah. The other faction I can see is black men. Trump has actually made some really big inroads with black men by changing things like child support laws.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I can't remember. Oh, yeah, he changed it. So I think that, God, I can't remember how he changed it. He changed it in like a really reasonable way, but that was not favorable for women who were, juicing guys who knocked them up for a living situation.
Wow.
And apparently this was, disproportionately affected black communities. What is it, 70%, 76% of black people are born outside of a marriage these days?
Yes, some insane amount that's hard for me to believe. Yes.
This is not part of black culture historically. Before they became like this ultra progressive party,
they had higher rates of marriage than white people did.
Yeah, you go to the 1960s, 5% of blacks were born outside of wedlock, while 10% of whites were. So this is the result of their alliance with the urban monoculture and the urban monoculture's degradation of their culture through that alliance. It is not an intrinsic part of being black or black culture. You can watch our episode, The Zombification of Black Culture, if you want to see, how the Democrats really effed them over on this. But yeah, I think black men are very winnable if you focus on issues like that, because a lot of society has become so much like a coalition, like us versus them, and males versus females has become such a big part of that in ways that are really institutionally abusive of the other in cultures where, so if you have like 76% of kids being born out of wedlock, the men and the women in that culture are not really in the same faction. Like, the women have a reason to F over the men, and the men have a reason to F over the women.
Fair.
There's a reason why when you look at like famous black women, they like almost always are dating Jews or white guys, but mostly Jews. It's like a thing. It's like a thing. Like, even when they're like racist, it's like, I don't know what that is, but I think it's due to, as the urban monoculture has infected their culture and broken up institutions like marriage, it's allowed for the ossification of a gender war that is more intractable. And the thing is that once you break up this gender role, then you're also a conservative, but you're a conservative for like wholesome family reasons, like, which a lot of the Black community is as well. They're like, yeah, I'm not interested in like all this DEI nonsense. I just want my kids to, be in an environment where they're treated fairly, and which you hear from a lot of the like wholesome faction of the Black community.
Yeah, 100%. That checks out. Also, I think that there's a huge portion of the Black community that is perfectly capitalistic, not socialist. Like all the socialist influencers I know are extremely white and extremely middle class. Like they grew up in privilege, and they also grew up very, very white. And when I look at a lot of shows that are meant to cater to primarily Black audiences and that have primarily Black classes, they may have very social justice themes, but they're all wearing like $5,000 shirts, or they're very capitalistic in nature, which implies to me, I couldn't say because I'm not Black, but it implies to me that Black audiences in America are more capitalistically leaning and not really all about this sort of Marxist theory. So pervasive.
I've definitely seen that as well. I mean, they're being realistic. They have less trust in governing institutions and structures for good reason. But one of the reasons it might be harder to get the Black male vote is that Democrats within this last cycle have leaned really hard into anti-Semitism. It's really normal among Democratic influencers, and the Black community is disproportionately anti-Semitic. I think a lot of people were really surprised when like Kanye went all anti-Semitic, and I was like, do you not have like Black friends? Like,
yeah, or have you not explored the concepts of the Nation of Islam?
Yeah, like what? Like this is not surprising, and not even for like negative reasons. Even I was talking with a friend of mine who is, a well-known entertainer.
Okay.
And she was talking about a lot of the well-known Black entertainers, and she's like, actually, anti-Semitism is really common amongst the well-known Black entertainers. Just most of them know better than to be public about it.
Okay.
And she's like, and the weird thing is, like, even as somebody who's not anti-Semitic myself, like, I actually kind of get it.
Oh my gosh.
Because so often for these people, their early managers and producers and people running the studios were all Jewish, and that a lot of these people screwed them over and acted, I mean, that's the way it was. Like if you're a moneyed interest in like the entertainment industry and you're dealing with somebody who's not educated, and I'm not saying that like Blacks are uneducated. I am saying a lot of Black people who go into the entertainment industry, specifically like the music or rap scene, come from a disproportionately lower level of education.
Well, also, if you're maxing out performing arts, you're not maxing out getting a master's degree or in something like that, unless you've gone the academic route, which probably means you're not a popular pop artist. So
yeah, and if you look at who are the lawyers and record producers and stuff like that in LA, they are disproportionately Jewish. And so the community began to feel like, hey, it's not white people who are holding us down. Like I've got lots of poor white friends. It's Jewish people who are holding us down.
Oh dear.
And that they knew they weren't allowed to say this publicly. So because the discussion never aired publicly, I mean, again, I don't think that this is because Jewish people screw people over disproportionately. I don't think that this is because anything about Jewish people. I just think that due to cultural and historic reasons, Jewish people ended up running the entertainment industry disproportionately. That's an interesting episode for a totally different time. It was the German Jews specifically. The Russian Jews ended up in the clothing industry on the East Coast. The German Jews ended up on the West Coast, in part because it was more deregulated. Look, I don't need to get into why they ended up running.
But I would just say, like, all of that said, I don't at least intuitively feel like the Republican Party is the Jew party and the Democrat Party is the anti-Jew party. I just think that
it's aligning that way.
Well, with Palestine, it came up more, but I don't know, even in the next presidential election cycle, just how relevant Palestine is going to be. So maybe it won't even matter. I think the only reason it's really risen to the surface is that Israel and Palestine were key international conflicts that were discussed extensively during the 2024 election.
Okay. I mean, wait, no. I mean, look, is it going to be a persistent issue? It depends on how long this war lasts. But I think that a lot of people made their positions clear, and a lot of like actual like anti-Semites left Republican Party, like, you know, Nick Fuentes or Leather Apron Club or David Duke, and a lot of them are beginning to align more. Like even David Duke was talking about how like he aligns more with Democratic Party policies these days.
Jeez.
He's like, look, like he felt really bad for the people of Gaza. He's like, I really appreciate the Democratic Party standing up for them. Like, I think that morally, I am more aligned with them.
Well, meanwhile, amidst all the tariff stuff, there was some progressive influencer who was like, Trump is finally speaking for the working class American. I love this. This is fantastic. So all sorts of disruption is taking place. I think so many.
A progressive influencer was saying that?
Yeah, I can't remember. It was someone discussed on the Blocked and Reported podcast, and I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Sagar, was it? But it was someone who was extremely left and who suddenly was standing Trump because of his tariffs. And I found that really interesting. I just think that now there's a lot of disruption. Democrats are really not sure what to do. They were obviously very, very disillusioned by what the mainstream party did in the last election cycle. So, you know, but who knows what's going to happen, because they got away with so much bad stuff and they don't seem to be showing any signs of dissolving in any way. You still have this very old group of people running everything, it seems. So I don't know. I mean, Bernie's certainly a celebrity right now. So
yeah, he's going, what was it, Coachella?
Yeah, he's like on tour, you know, selling out venues, giving his talks, looking curmudgeonly.
Well. I mean, Bernie's just a stooge for the pharma industries. Like, he if you saw, like, I was just so disgusted by the way he acted during the JFK hearing, where, you know, he's opposing JFK. He's about, you know, making things healthier. We know that he's the highest, gets the most donations of anyone in the Senate from the pharma companies. And people are like, oh, those are individual donations. I'm like, you really are that stupid? Like, do you think that Bernie consistently gets enough individual donations, highest end donor from the pharma industry, an industry that has a vested interest in giving money to the Senate and to lobbyists to change policy positions? Like, that's like, of all industries in the world, there are few with a bigger vested interest than pharma. You think that accidentally he's been winning the most money from that industry, not in one election cycle, but for over a decade? Like, that's completely implausible. Like, that is like Biden getting 17% more of the vote than Obama did, which, by the way, is the official number. Completely implausible to anyone who was alive during both of those elections. Obama's election was a phenomenon. Like, it was everything. It ate at every aspect of our culture and civilization during that election cycle. There is no way Biden got 17% more vote than him.
Yeah, that seemed a bit irregular. We can just say that.
Small. It's not like, oh, he got like 5 more points or something. It's like, if he had been running against Obama, he would have crushed him. That's not plausible.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point I'm making is Bernie is a complete sleazebag and always has been.
It doesn't seem to stop his fandom. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't matter if someone's a sleazebag by anyone's definition or not. What he says resonates with people.
Reminded me I always love the story of him being kicked out of the commune. You know that story? So he goes to like a communist commune, and they ended up kicking them out because all he would do was give speeches all day.
Oh, like he wasn't working?
Yeah, he's just giving speeches about how good the communism and socialism was.
Well, he's really good at that. That's his special interest, and he's good at it. And clearly, people like it. The right audience likes it. So.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know that many Bernie supporters anymore. Like the Bernie bro movement basically died out.
There's a lot of them.
I think they only like him because he's seen as counter mainstream Democrat, but he kowtowed to the mainstream Democrats throughout the entire last cycle, you know? I do not think Bernie is the way, and I do not think socialism is the path forward for Democrats. I think if they try to, actually, if they go like pure Fetterman style socialism, that could do pretty well.
What is Fetterman style socialism?
abandon the trans nonsense, just go full in like
Is he
wokeism.
anti-trans? I don't think he's anti-trans.
No, he's not yet, but like you can tell. Like abandon the illegal immigrant stuff. Just be like, we're not going to do that. We're actually going to implement a socialist policy. Like culture wars be gone. Socialist policy, because AI is coming. We need UBI or something like that. That would go pretty well.
So basically just agnostic socialism. Socialism without the
Agnostic socialism.
cultural baggage.
Yeah. I could see that as playing pretty hard against somebody like JD Vance or something.
People, I mean, our polling even that our nonprofit has done shows that people are genuinely concerned collectively about global geopolitical instability and, importantly, job loss due to AI. I do think that someone who caters to those fears and says, I've got you, this is a problem and I'm going to address it, will do pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I love you to death, Simone. What am I eating to dinner tonight?
So you bought at Costco a while back these mysterious chicken crumbles that you thought were very compelling. I
think they'd go well with fried rice.
With fried rice or just rice? Or just fry rice and do fried rice in that?
Yeah, I'd cook it separately and then mix it with fried rice. That's
fried rice? Okay, so you like fried rice with chicken crumbles tonight, yeah?
Yeah,
and then I'm gonna take out of the freezer some of the Wagyu steak for you to have tomorrow night.
I wouldn't cook them together, by the way. I'd cook them separately and I can mix them.
Yeah, first do the chicken crumbles and then do the fried rice. And you want me to serve them to you separately, not even fry at the very end, those things together?
It serves them separately because I don't know if the chicken crumbles are going to be good. So I'm going to want fried rice to eat if the chicken crumbles aren't good with the fried rice.
Okay.
And the future try might have the confidence to say mix them, but right now I don't know.
Okay. All right.
This is a hypothesis, Simone. A hypothesis.
Any special seasoning requests in the fried rice aside from a tiny bit of that vinegar? Obviously, lots of soy sauce, lots of butter, some MSG, and rice.
Oyster sauce.
Oyster sauce. Okay. And of course, green onion and some finely chopped bell pepper. Is that all right with you?
That works for me, my beautiful princess.
Eggs from the coop.
We live in such luxury, and we're ending so early. Do you want me to try to?
I actually have another journalist call, so this is not early.
Do you want me to try to? Do you want me to try to get the thing done, the video that you did?
If you could, yeah, that would be great.
I'll try to get that done tonight.
I would appreciate that. Good. All right.
All right. Love you. Who's the journalist?
Caroline Kitchener. I've stopped tracking who's coming from what, and I just take calls.
That's the way I am too, yeah. So much media about us now, like 1 million stories a day, because we are apparently famous. But that's cool. I like being famous. I wanted to be famous. I'm like a cool, everyone's like Malcolm. He's so cool. Look at him. He's so sexy.
Malcolm, so hot right now.
Right now. They're all like, oh yeah. Like the comments are so well liked and sexy. They're not Nazis at all.
They're just cousins.
They are so mean. Like, it's funny. Like the thing that used to make us go viral on Twitter, it's moved entirely to Blue Sky, and now, like, we don't go as viral because it's only on Blue Sky now. Like Twitter doesn't care.
Stays isolated.
Oh, yeah, that seems reasonable. Falling fertility rates are an issue.
Yeah.
And it really shows how much the Democrats as well, like Blue Sky has been terrible for them because it's completely silenced their ability to cancel people.
Oh yeah, they're not going mainstream the same way because they're only speaking to other Democrats. So it's just like the Democrat or the progressive gossip line online. And unfortunately, to make mainstream culture, it seems like you need to have everyone involved. That kind of surprises me. I'm like, why didn't the media just move to Blue Sky and just talk about the issues that their primary audience cared about? Like if that's, if for example, the New York Times is a left-leaning publication with a left-leaning audience.
1% of the audience of Twitter.
Oh. I would still use it for idea generation if I were them.
They're all on Blue Sky. Like New York Times is on Blue Sky. All the media is on Blue Sky. It's just the problem is that the busybodies whose former spiraling apoplectic freakouts caused virality and cancel mobs have left the environment where people other than them saw the cancel mobs. Mm-hmm. So now the CEO of Target isn't seeing the Target cancel mob because it's on Blue Sky.
Yeah. Or it's not as worrisome to them. I imagine some lackey coming to a CEO and saying, "Oh, 5 million people have liked this or retweeted this, and this is," and then on Blue Sky, it's more like 1.3 thousand people have skeeted it or whatever. What do you do on Blue Sky?
I don't know. And he's like, "Is that like matter?" And they're like, "Well, no." Say, okay. Thank you for like Blue Sky. I actually feel for the Republican Party is one of the like biggest public services that anyone's running for us right now. Like I would be so sad if Blue Sky shut down. It is like a containment ward for crazy people. It's like a crazy person island, and they're like yelling at me like, "You must hate not being on Crazy Person Island." And I'm like, "No, like you guys used to like go to the grocery store with me and stuff. It was scary."
You don't even hate not being on Twitter, and you never were because you can't be bothered.
I do like that we don't go viral in a negative context. Like I like that when things happen on Twitter now, everyone's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. All right. Well, I will get on that call. I love you so much. I'm gonna make your chicken crumbles, fried rice, isolating them.
Come on, it sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Dude, yeah, it sounds great.
Like maybe like fry the chicken crumbles or air fry them. I don't know. You'll figure it out.
You're supposed to pan fry them.
But that sounds good.
So easy as pie. We're all good. No problems. Oh my gosh. I was thinking about our family canon movies the other day and just thinking about how great Legally Blonde is for our family canon. I mean, like one on the surface level, being cheerful no matter what is a strategically good move. One, because it just helps. It makes it easier to take things on. It's more fun, but also it can make you seem disarming and unassuming when you really are a threat.
Legally Blonde, by the way, is just the Addams Family for the 90s.
It really is. Yeah. And then, like there's one of Elwood's friends gives her lucky scrunchie. And another friend is like, "That's not your lucky scrunchie. You only passed Spanish class because you gave the teacher a lap dance." And she's like, "Yeah, luckily," which is exactly how luck works. Like you don't get lucky unless you make an effort and take a risk. And then if it works, you were lucky. And that is how I want to teach our children about luck.
But my mom used to always from a movie really like Clueless always took the line of that they say in that, which is a grade is just a jumping off point for negotiations.
Clueless is another movie in our family canon. It's so good.
I'll go. But no, when I say it's like the Addams Family, it's about somebody who is culturally horrifying to the mainstream.
Yes.
And it's sort of like the beginnings of the urban monoculture. She is, because the school already represents the urban monoculture. The girls,
like the rad femme and like the super intellectual people, and
and she is mortifying to them because she's from a different cultural background.
Yeah, she's proud of it. Yeah. That's another great example, is that you should be proud to be othered. And then there's another one that like shows like when you've been wronged, don't go scream about it like a victim. Take the high road, but then if necessary, low-key blackmail that person to make sure they don't get in your way again. So I love that.
Did she do that in that, or?
Well, she was arguably sexually harassed by the one college professor that she interned with and then left and then decided to finally take on the major case that he used to take on, and he was going to stop her. And she threatened basically to come out and say what he did to her without doing it. And he backed off immediately. She was like, "Oh, I could tell them all about the you said it would be fine when we had that conversation the other night." And she was clearly referring to when he did the thing he shouldn't have done. So again, like took the high road, didn't hurt anyone, but definitely kept it in her back pocket. And I just love that too. Wasn't a victim. She turned that right around to her advantage.
Well, a lot of women just make it up. That's the way it works these days. Nothing even needs to happen within the urban monoculture. But yeah,
but she didn't do that.
All right. Okay, we'll get started here.
Is this Daddy's phone?
Yes, so be very careful with it. Octavian, what you doing? No, okay, careful.
She's gonna clobber you